All right, let's talk about Make.com. But we're not just going to do a feature tour of another app. No, this is about exploring a whole new way of thinking about automation. It's a visual approach, and it's designed specifically for the messy, super complex reality of how work actually gets done. But first, let me ask you something. And I'm pretty sure you've been here before. You set up what you think is a simple, foolproof automation, and then it breaks, right? Or it just completely falls apart the second there's one tiny little change in the process. So frustrating. Why on earth does that happen so often? Well, it really comes down to this huge gap between how we want things to work and how they really work. On one side, you've got this dream of a clean, straight line. A goes to B, goes to C. Simple. But the reality? Oh, it's more like what you see on the other side. It's messy. It's if this, then that. Oh, but wait, if this other thing happens, you've got to do these two other things at the same time. And that right there, that's exactly where those simple, linear tools just hit a wall. And that brings us right to the heart of it, what we're calling the automation complexity problem. This is the central challenge, really, that a whole new wave of tools, like Make.com, were literally built to solve. So what does this complexity actually look like on a day-to-day basis? Well, it's things like if-then-else logic, right? Where one little decision can send everything down a totally different path. It's needing to run multiple things at the same time, in parallel, not just in a neat little line. And oh yeah, it's having a plan B for when things go wrong, because they always do. We call that error handling. Plus, you've got all these funky data transformations to deal with. And look, these aren't some weird, rare exceptions. This is just how business works. Okay, so if complexity is the big problem, what's the answer? Well, it's actually about a shift in how you think about it. It means moving away from a simple checklist of steps and instead starting to think in visual flowcharts. To really get this, let's use an analogy. Think about the traditional approach, the one that tools like Zapier made so popular. It's like a train track. It is fantastic for getting from point A to point B to point C, straight down the line. Super direct, super efficient. For a simple trip, it's perfect. But here's the catch. The track is fixed. You can't just tell the conductor, hey, let's take a scenic detour. Nope, you're on the rails. Now, compare that to Make.com's approach. This isn't a train track. This is a whole road network. You're not stuck on one path. You're looking at a map, right? With highways and side streets and even roundabouts. And what does that let you do? Well, you can create all these branching paths. You can take multiple routes at once. You can handle some seriously complex journeys with total ease. And this is the absolute key. The real magic here isn't just that you can build more complex stuff. It's that you can see the entire system in one go. You're not just looking at one step at a time. You get the logic, you see the connections, you understand every possible route your information could take. It's like the difference between just following a recipe step by step versus having a full map of the entire kitchen. You know where everything is and how it all works together.
Okay, that sounds cool, right? But how do you actually build these road networks for your data? Let's get into the visual toolkit Make.com gives you.
First thing you need to know about are modules. Just think of these as your Lego bricks. They're the basic building blocks. Each module is just an action in one of your apps. Could be sending an email from Gmail, posting to Slack, or even running a prompt through ChatGPT. These are the fundamental pieces you'll build everything with. All right, next up, and this one is a game changer. We have routers. These are your decision makers. In that road network analogy we used, these are the roundabouts. A router lets you split your workflow into a bunch of different paths that can all run at the same time, based on rules you set up. Like, hey, if this is a VIP customer, send them this way. If not, send them that way. Super powerful. Then you've got filters. So if routers are the roundabouts, think of filters as the traffic cops. They stand between your little building blocks, and they only let data pass through if it matches the specific rules you've set. It gives you this incredibly fine-tuned control over the whole flow. And last, but definitely not least, error handling. This is your safety net, plain and simple, because let's be real, things break. Apps go down. It happens. Make lets you build in a backup plan for when things go wrong. You can tell it to try again, or take a completely different path, or just shoot you a quick notification. This is what turns a shaky automation into a rock-solid business process. Okay, so you get the concept, you've seen the tools. The big question now is, when should you actually choose this visual approach over a simpler one? Let's get practical. Look, it all comes down to picking the right tool for the job.
Make.com is going to be your best friend when you have those complicated workflows with a ton of if this, then that logic. It's perfect for people who are visual thinkers. You need to see how it all connects. And it's great for anything that needs to happen in parallel. Now, on the other hand, if you're just doing a super simple A to B task, a linear tool is probably going to be quicker. And if you're talking about massive enterprise level stuff, or you need the absolute control that custom code gives you, yeah, there are other tools for that.
And this visual style unlocks some really cool, powerful uses. We're seeing businesses use it for things like really sophisticated AI-powered content pipelines, or for intelligently routing sales leads based on all these complex rules. It's also great for multi-step customer onboarding and for syncing data between a bunch of different apps, where the logic is anything but a straight line. All right, let's zoom out for a second and see where Make.com fits into the bigger picture, because it's not the only tool out there, and knowing the landscape is super important.
This chart here really lays it out nicely. You can see Make.com and another tool, N8N, are both in that visual flowchart camp. Zapier, meanwhile, is sticking to its linear step-by-step thing. And really, the big trade-off is usually how complex it can get versus how easy it is to learn. Everyone agrees Zapier is the easiest to just pick up and go, but Make lets you build way more complex things. And then you have to talk about money. Zapier is usually the most expensive, Make is kind of in the middle, and N8N has this awesome free self-hosted option if you've got the tech chops for it.
And we're not talking about some small niche product here. Get this. Over 350,000 companies are using Make.com. It's really found its sweet spot with small and medium-sized businesses and agencies. The folks who need a ton of power and flexibility, but don't have a huge team of developers on standby. So let's end on this thought. AI is getting woven into everything we do, right? And that's making our work way more complex, with way more moving parts. So in that world, is this visual flowchart way of doing automation just another option? Or is it maybe the future, the only way we're going to be able to manage all this complexity? Definitely something to chew on.